going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Swingman Podcast. It's podcast number 134, and I know it this week because it's right there on the screen in front of me. As ever, I'm your host, George St. Ledger. Can't even get my name out there. George St. Ledger, joined us all the time by Louis Halvin and Lewis Howard. And unlike last week, I'm going to ask you how you two are doing. Have you had a fun week? The NBA is right around the corner now, so I guess you're right ready for it.
You know what? I am actually very excited for the NBA season because football has been absolutely horrendous as a Man United fan at the moment. But also, I just feel like there's been a void where I need another sport to really kick into gear. Obviously, there's a couple like the Cricket World Cup, Rugby World Cup's going at the moment, but I'm just looking forward to the NBA coming back over those two by a mile, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm feeling... We've just come off the weekend, so I'm feeling relaxed and refreshed. I'm not sure if you two have had the chance to read the article about Shams Charania that's doing the rounds today. But I found it quite funny. That man has no rest whatsoever. Even on his vacations or something, he has his phone by his side all the time, even by the pool. 10 hours of screen time just so he can tweet like the Utah Jazz are saving their cap space for like some random bum or whatever. I'm not Shams. I don't like doing that personally, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm also excited for the NBA season. I guess on the football front, I was a bit better on my end, but I don't have those. I'm not a rugby man or a cricket man.
Well, you're in your Arsenal rugby shirt, is what we
say.
Yes,
true.
Do you know if you're show the shirt? Show the shirt.
I'll try and get the badge up.
If you're what you get the badge in. If you're watching
true.
If you're watching this now, is that a rugby shirt or a football shirt?
It's a fleece. Just to clarify,
that is the issue. It isn't an actual shirt, but it's a rugby shirt style thing.
The material, if you were to wear it, you would be like, no way, this is a rugby shirt. But I can see why the appearance gives such an inflection. But I'm not a rugby man myself. I can't claim to that anyway.
Yeah, anyway, still comment down below. But in any case. This podcast is off to a flyer for it. This podcast we're going to be running through, and we do this again like we did last week with our over-unders. This podcast we're going to be like we did last week for our MVP and award predictions. This one is going to be for our over-unders. Now, in previous years, we have done this in a bit of a different manner, where we've each picked sort of 5 teams that we feel are the best over-unders, and then either I've done a bet and then the Washington Wizards have let me down on the very last day of the season, or some of us have got them completely correct and whatnot. This year, we're going for a different approach. We're going to go through all 30 teams, and don't worry, it's not going to be like a 3-hour-long podcast. We're going to go through them pretty rapidly. We're going to go through all 30 teams, decide where their line... Well, we're going to take, I think we're using one of the most favourable online bookmakers out there. We're going to use their sort of lines that are set for the over and under amount of regular season wins they're going to get. And we're going to tell you if they're going to go over or under. And obviously, we're going to get absolutely every 30 of them. We're all going to get them bang on correct. And it's all going to be happy days. So I think that's how we'll start. And then at the end of it, what we'll do is we'll have a banker 5 that we all agree they're either going over or going under this amount. And then from there, I will put my money where my mouth is on this banker. And I'll tweet that out after. But that's here and all there. Let's jump straight into it, though. The Atlanta Hawks. I feel we do it in sort of alphabetical order.
That's what the so-called bookmaker,
the unnamed popular bookmaker is using, because we're not giving them any brand recognition here.
Yeah,
I feel that's the best way to do it. So we will start with the Atlanta Hawks. Last season, they had 41 wins and 41 losses. They were bang on 500. And as such, their over-under is 41.5. Lewis Howard, where do you have the Atlanta Hawks?
Right, so when I look at the East, I'm just going to do this brief explanation now because it kind of covers all the thinking for all the teams. As I'll do with the West, is I'll look through, basically decide where I think roughly everyone's going to turn out, see who I think has strengthened, who's weakened, and then take in where they come last season as well. Just then go off. I think they'll be over and under. And when it comes to the Hawks, I think they've got slightly worse. Obviously, they've lost a couple players. And overall, I think the Eastern Conference, especially where they're going to want to be, has gotten stronger. So I've put the under for the Hawks. I think not by much at all, but I think they'll just scrape under this.
Okay. That's interesting. I have a lot less methodical approach than you do, if I'm quite honest. I think, are they bad? I mean, some of these are well placed, if I'm honest. So it's not a case of are they bad or are they not. I don't know if the Hawks have got worse particularly. I thought they were figuring some things out towards the end of the season. Obviously, they brought in Quinn Snyder for a lot of money.
Yeah, that's
Pretty
the
good
big
coach.
difference the other way.
Yeah. So I think they were starting to figure out. I guess the big sort of question mark or thing they'll have to work out is that backcourt going to be a long-term tangible thing for them? Will Trey be moved on? I don't see it. I think they could be quite decent. I went over, but again, it's not going to be a lot over. That's about where they were last time. So yeah, I've got them breaking over slightly their 500 record that they had last year.
I went under primarily because I don't think they're that great. Well, I think they're good. They're good, but I don't think they're going to be. When I look at sort of the teams that I think are going to be where they're placed, I don't think they're going to be the ones that are making the improvement necessarily.
Yeah, I think they'll do about the same as last year, to be honest. Like maybe a win or two under what they had.
Who did they particularly lose? I don't want to make it a Hawks thing because I said we were doing it quick. Yeah. But who did they particularly lose that would make them much? I know they lost John Collins.
No,
he wasn't very good for a couple of years.
Yeah, as I say, I don't think they're much worse. But I just say they lost a couple of players. John Collins, obviously the main one, but having Quinn Snyder obviously counteracts that. But I think it's more so what I think the people around them are going to do next year that makes me think there's got to be a couple of teams that regress a little bit. And I think they'll be one of the ones that
that's
just slightly less so than some of the others, but that was one I had to do.
No, completely. Right, so that's 2 under and 1 for the over. The Boston Celtics. Last year, obviously, the Celtics had a very good season, 57 wins. This year, their line is set at 54.5, I should say. Did I say 47 wins or did I say 57 wins?
So 57.
Yeah, 57.
Oh,
I think you had
57 wins, 54.5 is their line. I'm taking the over on the Celtics for that one.
Yeah, for me, this was a pretty easy over. I think maybe they've got a couple more injury concerns with some of their acquisitions, but I think they're a better team. I think it'll be them and the Bucks fighting for the top position, and they were ahead of it last year, so easy over for me.
Yeah. I mean, they were over it last year, and I feel like they've got better as an overall team. Like you say, there's injury concerns there. But I think once they figure out the lineup, I think it should be Drew, Derek White, the two Jalen and Jason Tatum, and then probably Porzingis in the center to give Horford some rest. I think that's a pretty damn good lineup. It's like probably the best 5 that you can put out there, really. So I can't see how they go under, but there's some concerns there with the coach, I guess, that you could put in there, but I think they'll clear 54.5 personally.
Yeah.
Moving the train along, Brooklyn Nets. We've got here. They had 45 regular season wins last year. Their line is set at 37.5. Obviously, those 45 wins would have been baked in some of the stuff pre-trades, but 37.5 is big for a team that's going to be led by Mikal Bridges and then a Ben Simmons that no one really knows. He looks good and all the stuff is sounding promising, but we've been there before with Ben Simmons, so I'm gonna. I do, and I sound like a broken record. I do think it'll be different, but we all know what can happen and what most likely will happen. So there is that area to hold. I think that's quite a tough line because I think if Ben Simmons is playing and Mikal Bridges is doing really well and they've got some nice pieces around them, they could very easily hit 37. That's saying that they had a better season than the Pacers and the Wizards did this year, though. So I'm probably going to go under for that.
I personally went under as well. Again, I think that's a lot of reliance on Ben Simmons. Even if he does play well, the health concerns there aren't quite fleshed out for me. I think Mikal Bridges can have a really good season. I don't think they were very good after the trade last year. I think they got in the playoffs purely off of they banked quite a few wins when Kyrie and KD when he played some of those games. So I don't think they were very good towards the end of last season. They're my sacrificial lamb, if that makes sense. I've got the Hawks going over, so and I've got a couple of other teams going over, so I kind of have to put them as under personally.
Yeah, I remember when we talked about the Nets a little bit on the last podcast because I think mainly it was because I have Mikal Bridges as most improved. I can't remember, but we spoke a little bit on them. And I do think they'll be in and around the the play-in 9, 10, 11, 12. I think there'll be one of them. And when I weighed up what teams I think will do better and worse, I think, as Louis said, I had to come to the conclusion that they would drop out a tiny bit from those play-in spots. And because of that, I think they'll just miss 37.5. So I'll put under as well.
Okay, so 3 unders there. Potential. I mean, we've had another sort of majority like we did with Boston. So potential ones that could be going into our banker at the end of the podcast. Moving on, Charlotte Hornets last year 27 wins, 55 losses. This year the line is surprisingly set at 31.5, and I'm not sure the rationale behind it. I feel that it's because LaMelo Ball's probably coming in with a fresh season and they're going off it like that. And also some of the teams in the East have probably deteriorated a little bit more, and that's potentially where some of the wins coming into it. But I can't lie, I'm not taking an over on the Hornets any day of the week. So I feel like I'd be surprised if I'm the only one here that's taking them for the under as well. So
I'll save it some time. Yeah, it's an under for me, and I put it as preliminary banker. If I'm quite honest.
Wow, okay.
I mean, after the team might be incarcerated at this moment in time. So
if Kai Jones was still there, I mean, maybe, but
yeah, I just don't see what they have. I just don't. Talent's not there, personally.
I think this over/under is purely based on LaMelo coming back and having a full season. It's just I can see the logic with the. Do you think adding LaMelo to that team gives them an extra 4 or 5? I can't remember that. I think it has to be 5. It'd be 5 wins, wouldn't it, to go over? Yeah. It doesn't give them an extra 5 wins, and you can easily make that argument, I guess. But I just think overall, with the strength of the East, I would stay under. I don't think it's a banker, though. I will say I wouldn't put it in the 5, one of the 5 bankers, but I'd go under.
They lost Kelly Oubre. I do like Mark Williams, so there are some things with
Brandon Miller's coming in. We'll see how he can do, but he wasn't like a really consensus number 2 pick either. Which there's some pressure with that. It's a sad state of affairs. They've not been good for a very long time, so hopefully it turns around there sometime.
But okay, anyway, moving on. We'll go Chicago Bulls. Last year they had 40 wins. The line is set at 37.5. I feel like the Bulls are going to be one of these teams where I know they re-signed Vucevic and they're looking at potentially moving on DeRozan. I feel like if they have a shaky start, they're going to look to sort of not fully blow it up, but they'll look to move DeRozan on rapidly and then potentially might involve one of Levine or Vucevic in a trade if they can get them out of there. So I would be leaning more on the under on this side of it with Chicago, personally.
I went over with this, but I think it will be just. It's just when I look at the squad they've got, either this is obviously if they don't, start terribly and decide to move one of their pieces, this is if they're all together. This gives a little bit of wiggle room from last year to go down a bit maybe, but they've got enough of a decent roster, I think, to be able to get over 37.5, even if I don't think it'll be by much. So.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think 37.5 seems quite low. I think the X factor is that trade that could happen if they have a bad start, which is a point that I'm willing to take. So it's kind of teetering on the edge of over under really for me there. But I don't think they've got I can't see them getting less wins than they did last year personally. And like you said, Vucevic, I guess, with a new contract, maybe a new sort of wind in his wings, shall we say, a bit more encouragement offensively. I'm not too sure. I think they're a decent team. I don't think they're getting less wins than they did last time. So I just went for the over there.
Interesting. Fair enough. I don't think that's going to be one for the banker then, is what we're pretty much feeling with the Bulls here. Chicago done. Cleveland Cavaliers, I should say. Last year had 51 wins. Over under set at 50.5, right on the nose from last year. I think the Cavs would do very well to get an over on that. I think they'd be very, very good to improve. But I keep saying at the moment we've done 5 teams and I've picked 4 unders. But I don't think.
Yeah, I mean it'll probably average.
I don't think they're going to improve on that.
I think this one's tough because there is from when I look at the East, from 3 to say 5, I do think there's a teams there that should maybe 3 to 5, 3 to 6. They will. I'm confident there'll be teams that will keep their positions, or like for example, the Heat will move up into it, and they should be in between that sort of 47 to 51 range, and that's where I think the Cavs will be. So because of that, I've put them slightly under, but I wouldn't be surprised if they manage to get over 50.5. It is quite high and pushes them towards that upper echelon, but I do think they will fall somewhere around there. So it wouldn't be a banker for me, but I'd say just under.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I tried to sort of remove the end of their season with the playoffs and everything from my mind, particularly because I think if you looked at that in a vacuum, you'd be like, maybe we were overrating this team slightly, definitely offensively anyway. I just do think they have recipes or like a set in stone process to carve out regular season wins quite well with that. They're tough defensively with that front court. Usually within a regular season game, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are going to get you through quite a few games. And maybe Donovan Mitchell comes back with something to prove. He definitely had something to prove the start of last season when he's being put in MVP conversations. Now he's getting, I get a bit more criticism than he has done previously. I went for slightly over. I could be talked into under, so it's definitely not a banker. But yeah.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a banker. I think it'll be close for them, but I feel like if they're going over, they're doing over that again, they do quite well for them. But I wouldn't be shocked if it happens. I would just lean on the underside of things. Moving on, Dallas Mavs, first Western Conference team I believe we're speaking about here right now.
Yeah.
Dallas Mavericks last year hit 38 wins. The over under is set at 43.5. It's a bit of an uptick. Obviously, that was there was some games played pre-Kyrie trade and then Kyrie doing Kyrie things. 43.5 is a jump up. It is a 6 games increase. I don't particularly like the Dallas roster. I don't think it's filled with much depth. I know they added Grant Williams. They've added a few other pieces. Under again. I'm just picking unders every time. I'm really depressing at the minute.
Could I just say now? You picked in our pre-season predictions Luka to get MVP. You think Luka could get MVP on a Mavs team that gets under 43 wins?
I feel like but Luka. We saw this last year. Luka can hit 40-point triple doubles, and that team still loses.
Yeah, but my point is he won't win MVP because of that. Like someone that people regard as a top 5 player in the league can't win MVP if his team is in the play-ins or worse. And that is where they'll be, maybe scrape an 8th seed if they get under. So I feel like you have to go over because you picked him for MVP.
God, that's the bind I was in particularly because I had the same thought process.
I'm hanging my hat on Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber. I can't believe I'm about to say over on a Dallas Mavericks.
I mean, for what it's worth, I didn't pick Luka for MVP. And I'm still going to go over because I just think that with Kyrie and Luka, defensively, it's horrendous, don't get me wrong. But there's so much firepower there. And I just I'm hoping on that they'll have figured it out a little bit more than they did last year to push them over the line. It's definitely not a banker by any means, but I would go over for it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got that, and you've also got, can Kyrie stay healthy or stay mentally aware enough to play a game of basketball for like a stretch of the season, which is 2 big risks that they have to take, and this one that they have done. It's just such a bad team. All you've got to fill the team with Luka is just shooters and people who can defend. It's actually not that difficult. I don't know how they've made it so hard for themselves. I have to go over because I picked him for MVP. But when I look at it a bit more, I'm like, there's some other teams here that maybe could be a little bit better. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a crushing wake up call, is what that was there. But okay, so that's 3 of us going for over, but it's absolutely not a banker.
No,
we're going to be discussing. Right, moving on. Denver Nuggets, 53 wins last year. Line is set at 52.5. And I'm going to take the over on this one, I feel, with Denver, because they're just a regular season powerhouse, and that's pretty much it. End of conversation. I don't care that I lost Bruce Brown. They're still going to get over 50 wins.
Yeah, they're obviously a great team. Even we've seen in the playoffs now when they're fully firing on all cylinders, they're the best team in the league, arguably. They are now. Whether you think they will be next year is arguable, but they're built to be able to. They're built to be able to rack up. Yeah, I agree. Just because I talked about the strength of the East. We look at the strength of the West, and the top teams aren't as far pushed up from the rest of the pack, and so that's why I wouldn't say it's a banker, but they are built in a way where they just rack up wins. So I've got to go with the over.
Yeah, the West is so much more competitive than the East. Well, in terms of those win totals, anyway, it's much lower than what you'd get in the East. I toyed with under just in case there's some sort of like post-finals like hangover a little bit, where they're like feeling their way through the regular season. Now they've won the championship, it may not matter as much, but Jokic plays every game. Jamal Murray plays since he's come back from that injury, pretty much every game, and I think they come through with a new confidence.
The Jokic is the main one. I think no matter what happens, he will just be there and be able to grind you through games. And someone like that is invaluable to a franchise, but it's especially good in the regular season, obviously, because you will just be able to keep ticking over with a player like that.
Yeah, it's still going to make me laugh when it's like 10 games in and he's like on 7 triple doubles already, and it looks like it's just so easy for him. And he spent 4 months tending to horses and doing absolutely no exercise.
He's not going to win the MVP again, though, is he?
Well, we're going to wait and see for that. Anyway, moving on. Detroit, 17 wins last year. Over under is set at 27.5. So they're asking for 11 extra wins this year. Now, the question I asked the both of you is: Cade Cunningham worth 11 extra wins?
No, probably not. I mean, I really like I really like Cade. I really like Cade actually, but that is I didn't realize their win total was that bad. If I'm quite honest,
they went they did go 1-9 in their last 10 games of the season.
Obviously,
so they were in full tank mode at that point. But
yeah, there was some incentive there. There's less incentive this year because the next year's draft class isn't quite as stellar, and they gave Monty Williams an absolute like crap ton of money, like ridiculous amounts of money to make this team obviously quite a bit better. It's kind of a similar thing to what we talk about with the Hornets. Is LaMelo Ball, is Cade Cunningham worth that much? I think Cade is worth more wins. They'll definitely get more wins than they did last season. But their team is really strangely constructed with like old players, new, like young players. There's like you've got like a guard rotation of what Thompson twin did they take? Was it Asa Thompson? I can't remember which one of them that they had.
I don't pay too much attention on Detroit.
Sorry. Yeah, fair enough. Cade Cunningham, Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey.
I do like Jaden Ivey.
Well, we'll see. So it's just a weird team. So I don't think they'll get 11 extra wins. That's just basically the crux of it.
I do think they'll make a bit of a jump. I mean, you can't go lower than last year. I think so. I think they'll make a bit of a jump, but I just don't think it will be a 10-win jump. So
I think,
or even 11 jump.
11 because of the size of the jump. I think under 27.5 could be a potential banker. Is all.
Maybe.
Potential.
The ones we've saying potential, I've been marking in any case as we go through it. Right. Anyway, going back to the West, I should say. Golden State last year, 44 wins. Their line is set at 47.5. Obviously, last year, Steph missed quite a large amount of time towards the start of the season. This year, Draymond's the one that's got the injury doubts around the first few weeks, but they're looking pretty relatively healthy. CP3 in addition. Are they getting over 47.5 wins this year, Lewis Howard?
I should move the under for this, and I feel like most people, maybe it's just from what I've seen on Twitter, would go with the over. But I think Golden State's just at the moment, or have been the past couple of years, one of those teams that you have faith that come playoff time, they'll be a very good outfit and can take on anyone, minus maybe the Nuggets. But I think in the regular season, they have struggled a little bit. So, especially with the Draymond injury as well, obviously I think Steph will be in basically an MVP form like he has been. But overall, I think they'll go slightly under. I think they'll have a similar record to what they had last year, maybe a couple wins more, 1 win more.
I also took the under on this one. I'm really still not sure about that Chris Paul fit, and I do have to see it in action and how that makes them particularly better. I can't see it as of now. I think getting Jordan Poole out of that situation probably was just that's an addition by subtraction. Not that I think he's a bad player, but I just think that environment for him and the sort of situation that unfolded at the start of last season just it made the environment not very conducive to winning basketball, and their away record was so bad last year. I think Draymond's just like by far and away the best defender on that team, so that's a bit of a concern if he's not starting the season. Hopefully with more Wiggins this season. He was out for a long time last year, which I think sort of that was a large part of why they were so bad in the regular season last year. So, there's different aspects of it. I think when they've sort of abandoned this, they tried to kind of rebuild as they were still competing when they were like Paul and Moses Moody and Kuminga, and they've obviously found that didn't work. So now they've gone back to being the older guys. Doesn't really regular season, that doesn't really like equate to a load of wins, I don't feel like, because they're just focusing on the end goal. Yeah, I went for under because I'm just not sure about that CP thing, and they're just a bit too old, I think, to really put the motor on in the regular season.
That's fair. I've gone for the over, and here is my rationale behind it. So the line is asking for an extra 3 wins off last year. Now, I feel that Clay missed some time, Steph missed quite a lot of time, Andrew Wiggins obviously missed a lot of time. There was the whole situation that transpired last year, which has moved on in any case. But I think the number one factor of this, and I will grant you the fact that I am also not sure how the CP3 situation is going to arise. I'm not sure how it's going to particularly play out. But I feel that the main thing of this team in general is that I don't see them going 11-30 on the road. I feel like that was the crux of that team last year. They were so bad in the regular season on road trips where they just took L's after L's after L's. And I think they'll rectify that this year. I feel that when they're going back to sort of the older guys' mentality of it, whilst they will probably sit a few more games, I think on those road trips they're not going to be going as negative as they did is how I see it. So that's why I went for the over.
There could be a change in mentality there, couldn't there? Like we've heard about the Clippers as well, which we'll get onto at another time.
Indeed. In any case, I don't think either of them is a banker, is what we say for it. In any case, we will roll on down to Houston. 22 wins last year. Line is set at 31.5. How juicy are you feeling about the Rockets this year? Is it takeoff season, Howard? What are you saying?
I do think they'll be quite a bit better next year. So I was actually I'm an iron about this one, but I went with the under in the end just because I think there are, when I went through the West, there are a lot of teams that I picked the over. There's quite a few teams I picked the over for. So I think they'll increase, but not to the point where they'll get over 31.5. I'd expect them to be at around 30. So, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did get it because I do like a lot of the young players they have, some of the additions they made, and obviously the head coach is a massive plus now as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if they get the over.
They'd be gutted if they got under 31.5, wouldn't they? Surely.
Yeah, they would.
With the money they've paid out to Fred VanVleet. That's the only reason I've gone for over, if I'm quite honest. Like, if they don't get over that, that's a disaster. Like you said, I think for me, it's more I haven't seen the young players do anything of note. I like them, but I don't trust them yet. So we'll see when we get to it. But Fred VanVleet got a lot of money. I think he's a decent player. Maybe not a best sort of impression at the end of the Raptors, see like his time at the Raptors, but I can't see how he makes this team. I think he makes them better, basically. Whether it makes that jump up, I guess, is another thing to it. But I do think Ime is like a top 3 coach in the league, and I think he's a really good defensive coach, and I think that's what he'll have to instill in this young team. And I think with some of the tools they have, I mean, Jalen Green could be an amazing defensive guard. I think. That's what he'll have to make them tough, and he'll have to like get them defending well. And it took a bit of time with Boston, but I think 31.5, they'd be really gutted if they didn't get over that personally.
Yeah, I just echo your statements there, Louis. I can't lie. Everything that you said, I like some of the young players. I like Jabari Smith Jr. quite a lot over there.
Yeah, so, that's true. It's a big one.
I feel that coupled with it. I think 9 wins is a lot more to ask. Sorry, 10 wins essentially.
Yeah,
is a big deal to ask. It's almost 50% more than what they got last year. But I agree. I think with the off-season moves they made, the coach, I feel like 30 wins.
Dylan Brooks.
Like that's saying, that's saying that they get less than this Trailblazers team did this year, who basically sat Dame Lillard out. For
Exactly. That's what I was looking at.
games.
Yeah.
So it would be pretty
Yeah,
catastrophic
that's
if they
fair.
don't.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a banker. I don't think it's a banker.
No, do I.
And that's the way it goes. Right, moving on. Indiana Pacers. Last year, 35 wins for them. The line is set at 38.5. A few off-season moves. Buddy Hill's not had a trade yet, has he? Am I right in saying that?
No.
Have I missed that? No, he's on the trading block.
Still...
He's on the chopping block, but he's not had his move yet. Bruce Brown was the main addition for them. Where are we saying for Indiana?
Well, I remember when we spoke last, I said that I predicted the Pacers to be at least a playing team next year, and basically for that, they've really got to go over this. So I went with the over for the Pacers.
Yeah, I went for over as well. I recognise it's fragile because I still think if Halliburton gets injured like he did last year, they could just crumble. So that's a big part of it, but I can't go into something thinking, if this player gets injured when he doesn't have that much of a record. So I went for over as well. I think they're a decent young team.
Yep. Again, I really like Indiana. I think they'll do well this year. I've got them for the over. I agree with Halliburton getting injured, but they actually do have quite some decent depth. I really like Andrew Nemhard. I think he had good showings last year, especially as a rookie when he came in and he played some decent minutes for them. I think he's a good defensive guard as well. So I think they've got some nice pieces surrounding Indiana. I think Bruce Brown is a really good pickup for them in terms of just gradually getting better. I think he's going to elevate them a bit more. 3 overs. I don't think it's a banker though, but I think we all agree on the over. Back to the West. We're going to go to the 1 acre long screen stadium. Was it an acre? Was that what he said? I feel like he said it was an acre.
I can't remember.
There's a lot of toilets.
A lot of toilets, a lot of damn toilets, and excellent Wi-Fi. We're going to talk about the Clippers. 44 wins last year. Line is set at 45.5. How are we feeling on Cliptown?
Well,
Clip
is
it Clip Nation?
Age.
Clippers Nation.
Yeah, I think it is. Anyway, it's the age-old question, really, isn't it? Well, are you going to buy into the fact that their star players will be healthy and playing? And once again, maybe foolishly once again, I'm going with the over for the Clippers. I think their roster 100% should get this easily. Obviously, we know with the amount of games that people are going to miss, usually you say, you can't predict injuries with teams. Well, with the Clippers, you absolutely can predict injuries, or at least predict missing games. And so that obviously eats away at it, but I still think they should be able to get it over.
I would suggest that probably at some stage this season they'll probably have James Harden as well.
Yeah,
don't really care that much about that, but just think it's important to mention. I actually went for under. I'm just not. Until they prove it to me, I'm just not fancying them.
Yeah,
at the moment.
It's fair. We've all been burnt so many times by it, so predicting where they'll be.
Yeah, whatever they say about the sort of awards cut off now, so you have to play a minimum amount of games to get some of these awards at the end of the season, All NBA, which can lead to more money or whatever. Kawhi Leonard does not care about that whatsoever. He's literally said I think it was a press conference, like, there's nothing that can make me play a game if I don't have to, basically. So I'm not convinced that's going to help, but they are trying to sort of ring this thing like, we're going to go from day one, we're going to play the regular season, get that chemistry going. They did have a decent showing, I think, in the first round of the playoffs against the Suns. It's better than I thought they would do. I just don't have a lot of faith in them. I'm just quite down on them at the minute. And I think where I have other teams going over in that sort of similar bracket, I kind of do just have to put them slightly under. And I think that there could be a trade possibility there, but maybe that's a pipe dream.
I'll keep it short. I have the Clippers for the over. I think the roster is very, very good. I think that they will obviously miss games, and that's where I go into it. But there's a lot of role players that I like in that Clippers team in any case. So 2 wins extra is quite actually a lot when you think about it in this thing. Like 2 wins is, especially on what they did last year, it is a lot more. But I think that they will get it done. Anyway, speaking of their Showtime sisters in the...
It's no Showtime in the Clippers.
Well, moving on to the Showtime Lakers is where I was sort of going with it. 43 wins for the Lakers last season. The over-under is set at 46.5. So they're asking for an extra 4 wins.
Yeah.
Do you see it happening?
Yeah, and as you just said, with the couple wins with the Clippers, around this part of the West, because it's so hotly contested, that's actually asking for quite a lot. Like even the 2 wins, let alone the 4 wins they're asking here. But obviously, we did see the Lakers figure it out at some point last season and push on and get to the Western Conference Finals. So I'm going to go with the over on this because I think they are a very good team and they should have high aspirations next year. Obviously, AD and LeBron, it's not quite the Kawhi, Paul George, Clippers potential issues with playing games, but it's still a worry. But I'm even going to go as far as to say that this would be one of my bankers for the Lakers.
The Lakers.
I think they'll be much better next year.
I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say over in a banker. Yeah. I think even if LeBron and AD do miss games, I think they've got the roster to carry them with, Austin Reeves hopefully getting better. Caleb Martin. Yeah, I think they've got a good Rui Hachimura coming back. I think they've got a really good, well-rounded team to support LeBron and AD. So, yeah, they had a good end to the season as well. So you got to take that.
Are we going to fall for the Lakers stuff?
Look, I'm not falling for it. I'm on it. I'm riding with them.
I just see it. Just feels like I can fully get it and see that the roster is so much better. They were so good they proved a lot of people wrong in the playoffs. They had a really good last 10 games of the regular season to get themselves there. But I feel like every season we almost do this with the Lakers now, where we're like, oh, they're going to be really good this year.
And I didn't last season.
Sort of
last year I didn't either. So we got one off there. But I think as well,
I had them to be honest, I had them as the over, but it wasn't as a banker because I just feel that again, LeBron is 1 year older. He did get injured and miss a lot of time last year. It can happen again. AD is AD, so that just bakes into it of the equation for it. And then there are a lot of new pieces, and necessarily it doesn't always work. That's the only feeling that I have with it. But
from what I saw last year, I just believe in this team, and I think when I talk about teams and certain floor setters, like I was talking about Jokic before, this is less one player to me. There's not that many people as good, barely anyone as good as Jokic in the league. But when it comes to floors as a team, I just think the defensive floor of this Lakers team will mean that they should be able to rack up a certain amount of wins, and then there'll be the variance either way from that. But that should be a staple for them, whereas other teams, there should be much more fluctuations, barring injuries, obviously, because Anthony Davis is an enormous part of that.
I mean, the truly sort of disastrous decision they've made in the last couple of years was trading for Russ a couple of years ago. And I think maybe going into that one, maybe there was some more mixed opinions. Maybe some of us thought they'd be really good. I don't think I was too hard on that at the time, but everyone they've brought in, but they've kept sort of like the staples of what made them good towards the end of last season.
Yeah.
And they've just sort of layered on top of it rather than taking it all apart and put new pieces in and stuff like that. So that's where I think the difference lies this time. But like you said, if they're out for a prolonged amount of time together as well, then probably not. But I don't see that happening personally.
Yeah. What they lost when they signed Russ, I think, and what they got back when they traded him.
Yeah.
So it's less about Russ themselves, is understanding what their identity is and who they are as a team. And I think they lost sight of that when they had Russ and just thought star power would carry them over the line. And I think refinding that has allowed them to shape their roster in a way that should be successful in the regular season and in the playoffs.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, 3 overs and a potential banker. Memphis, last year, 51 wins. Over-under is set at 45.5. So you're getting a 6-win haircut on the Grizzlies this year. Is that enticing enough for you to take the over? Me personally, I'm going to jump in first on this one. No, I'm going under on this. I feel like Ja missing 25 games, is it, at the start of the season is quite a lot. He's then going to come back in, not disturb the flow of the team, but it will be a difference. I know he's training with them throughout, so they're going to be playing with Ja in training sessions, but I feel like the Grizzlies had a really, really solid year last year, and I don't see that repeating necessarily, especially the home. I think they were the best home team in the NBA last year. I think they lost 5 games, and I don't see that happening again. I think teams may figure them out in general a little bit more this season. And yeah, 6 wins is a lot, but I feel like if I'm going to be taking wins away from anyone, I'll be taking it away from the Grizzlies at the moment.
Well, I'm going over on the Grizzlies. I toyed with under as well, actually, a little bit. But when you look at the sort of, like you said, the 6 sort of game haircut on their last total, yeah, that's a lot of games missed for Ja Morant. He does he missed probably, I'd say, a similar amount of games last season. That might have to be checked through injury, through his sort of 1 week stint in whatever it was that they sent him to, like in Florida. And I don't think that they're used to playing without him slightly. And I know they lost a big part of that in Tyus Jones when they got Marcus Smart. But like Lewis mentioned with the defensive ceiling, or the defensive floor, sorry, that the Lakers have, I do think the Grizzlies gain that somewhat when you've got the defensive player of the year last year and then the year before defensive player of the year. I think I said that in the last podcast. And I think, there's an interesting discourse about how good of a defender Marcus Smart is. I don't think he makes them a worse defensive team. And I think it's a bit more grit and grind. It's a bit more classic Memphis Grizzlies than we're probably used to with the exciting sort of highlights with Ja. Offensively, they might be hard-pressed in some games, but I think they'll always be in games. And I don't think they're getting significantly worse just because Ja is missing a portion of the season, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because obviously if Ja wasn't missing games, they would 100% be able to get that over,
Yeah.
I think. And so, I factor that in. I think, okay, is that going to be enough to him missing those games going to be enough to push them under it? And eventually I decided on the over. I do think they'll get a few games worse than last year, but I do think they'll still go over 45.5 because, as Louis said, what happened last season when he missed games gives me confidence that they should be able to grind out some results while he's not there, and at least enough to be able to push them over that total for the season.
That's fair enough, yeah. I don't think they're a banker in any case, but
No.
2 overs and an under for them right now. Let's get the train moving. We will scroll on down over to the East again. We'll pick up Miami. 44 wins last year. Over-under is set at 44 wins. 44.5, I should say. So, yeah. Do you know what? I feel over on Miami for this one because I think Miami themselves, although they haven't done anything in the off-season of note, I don't think they've gotten any worse. I think they'll get better as a unit. I know they lost Gabe Vincent. I know that they lost Max Strus, and there's a few things for that. But I just feel that as a cohesive unit in the regular season, again, they were another team that were really bad on the road, and I don't think that's going to happen again next year. I know Jimmy Butler doesn't necessarily take the regular season seriously, but yeah, I'm going to go over on the Heat.
Yeah, I think with the Heat, it's obviously I don't think they're as good a regular season team as the Grizzlies, but I echo what Louis said about they make games difficult for people, and they will always be in a lot of games. And so that will help them get to the over, because I've gone for the over as well. And I think the whole Dame situation and maybe some of the things that have been said about the Heat will give them a bit of a chip on their shoulder, a bit of extra motivation. I think Tyler Hero will have a bit of extra motivation with what's been said about him with the Dame situation. And I think they'll push in. I spoke before about sort of that maybe 3 to 5, 3 to 6, let's say, range for the East. And I think you'll have your Sixers, your Cavs, your Knicks, and your Heat. I think they're pretty much solidified in those positions for me. Not in that order per se, but and to be in there, I think they'll have to get the over on this. So I'm going to go with the over.
I went over because I thought that win total looked quite low. I know that's what they got last year, but I guess the regular season probably wasn't a really fair indication of what that team was about, particularly. I guess they're never that. I mean, they were the first seed, I think, the year before, actually. But on and off, I think I might have said that Caleb Martin was the one that went today because it was Gabe Vincent, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, that is a loss. But yeah, I think that win the total seems quite low. So that's the only reason I went over personally. I think they'll have a bit of a bone to bear, given like what you said.
Indeed. Anyway, moving it on. Milwaukee Bucks last year, 58 wins. Dame Lillard added to the ranks. this year, 53.5. I'm not going to go into it. That's an easy over, I feel.
Yeah, that's an easy over for me. Yeah, you can
Banker.
I think
keep
that's
it
an easy
moving.
that's
Yeah,
an
banker,
over and
absolute banker.
potential banker. Right, Minnesota Timberwolves. We've got here. Let me try. I've just lost where my page was. Last year, 42 wins. Over under is set at 44.5. I'm going to go over on Minnesota because I think Anthony Edwards is going to be extremely good this year. I have high stonks in an Ant-Man. And by that, from Louis there, I feel that you're on the underside.
I just think it's
not against your beloved Minnesota.
three more wins than last year. I just don't know. Maybe they'll figure out some things with the two bigs. Maybe they'll figure out one of them needs to get the hell out of there, which is probably what will happen, I guess, at some stage. Yeah, that we've said about that Western Conference pack. It's just so tight together that I can't really say that they are particularly going to go over that win total for me. That's the only reason why. But I echo your Ant-Man stocks because he had a good Olympics and everything, and I think he'll be riding some high confidence going into this season.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Anthony Edwards. I think everyone is at this point. Yeah. But when I look at the people around him, there's a lot of Western teams that are on 44.5 for the over-under. There's the Kings, the Pelicans, Timberwolves, and the Thunder. And for me, I think they were, when I had to decide which ones I wanted to over and under, they were one of the ones I just decided would fall just under. I could go easily either way on them, but I'm going to say the under.
Yeah, not a banker team, but they'll be in and around it. I feel like they'd get like 45 is where I'll probably push them for, which is just scraping over. In any case, the Pelicans themselves, a very quiet off season for Zion Williams. He didn't really get up to too much. So everything on basketball. 42 wins last year, over under, as Lewis just said, 44.5 as well. I'm going to take the under on the Pelicans. I'm just buying under I don't think Zion's going to play anywhere near enough games yet again. I feel like it's just going to be a repeat of last year for them. I think Brandon Ingram will be a shining light for them again. But I'm just getting under vibes from them, unfortunately for me.
I mean, Ingram gets injured quite a lot as well, unfortunately. So that's I went for under as well, similarly because there's two other teams in that bracket that I put as over, so I kind of have to. But yeah, it is. Like I said, with the Pacers, you don't want to go into a season thinking someone could get injured. It could all fall apart. But when you've got someone like Zion who hasn't really proved it to us yet, you kind of just have to go with that opinion. And if you could prove him wrong, that's a good thing. I hope to be proven wrong in this case because I'd like to see him on the basketball court. But I don't trust that he'll maintain a certain level of fitness. And outside of those two, they've got good players, but no one that can sort of elevate them to wins, if that makes sense. So that's what I go for.
I also went for the under. I do think, I forgot, there's a couple teams I do think are going to have a bit of a catastrophic fall off in the West. So I think there are some wins to be had. But I've gone with the under for the Pelicans because even though I do think if I knew Zion was going to play almost every game, then I probably would go for the over. But there are certain exceptions where you do factor the games being played into account. And so for me, with him, and then Louis said potentially Brandon Ingram as well, I think they'll just fall short of it.
Just fall short of them. Moving over to the East, we've got New York and is their full name, is it Knickerbockers? Is that what it is?
Yes, that is it,
that's what it is. The New York Knicks, 47 wins last year, over under is set at 45.5. So you're getting a 2-win haircut if you want to take that. Because of the East and where I'm seeing games go, I feel like the Knicks might lose a couple more this year. So I would take the under on New York. But that doesn't really change my opinion on them. I just feel that there's going to be a few more games going somewhere, and if I'm giving them to other teams, the Knicks are going to be one where I take them away.
Yeah, I said before, I think there's the range of that 3 to 6. I think the Knicks are pretty comfortably going to fall in again. Obviously, 3 to 6 is a big difference between 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 with the home court. But in terms of the ranges, I see teams falling in the East. That is one of them, and I think they'll comfortably get in that. And where I see the totals being for that position, I think they will get the over. I think they'll be about 46, 47 again, and they'll get one of those spots.
I had a similar perspective.
Yeah, over, yeah.
Yeah, the similar perspective to George, just that someone has to take a bit of a haircut here. And I think they've had quite a quiet off season, I would say. That's not necessarily a bad thing because we've seen them have really loud, disastrous off seasons. I feel like they're biding their time, waiting for something. That's just the impression that I get from them. But they've got the consistent team, so they'll still be good. They'll still be around here. So yeah, just a bit
it's
under.
It's the classic Knicks thing of they're just monitoring every player. And
Yeah.
They don't do anything. But yeah, in any case, we'll throw it back over to the West. OKC last year 40 wins. This year the line is set at 44.5. Chet Holmgren's coming into the throne. I'm saying over, and it's pretty simple as that. I'm very bullish on OKC, and that's probably why.
Yeah, I like OKC as well, and so when it comes to those 44.5 win over-unders in the West, in that little pack, they're one of the ones I've decided to go over. I also picked, they're my coach of the year pick, so I kind of have to go over really because it won't be a coach of the year if they don't get that. So
yeah, I picked over Banker. I put him as a
Banker.
Banker
That is.
We've done a whole podcast about the OKC Thunder. If you want to listen to it, we were pretty hard on them then.
That podcast has done very well as well. Yeah,
Thunder Nation.
No, indeed. But no, I could be talked into them being thrown into the Banker mix. But we'll have that discussion right at the end. Orlando is where we're going now. Disney Town, 34 wins last year. Over under is set at 37.5. Paolo season 2. Are you buying Disney stonks?
There are, there's a couple players, or a few players even on the Magic that I do really like, and Banker is one of them.
Wagner.
I really like Wagner as well. Yeah, so I think I said in the podcast with the Pacers once, I think I chose them to be a player. So I'm going to say over as well.
Yeah, I think there's a couple more wins than it was last season. Second season, not usually historically for some reason quite a down season for pretty good prospects like Banker and stuff like that. Even Wagner last year, who I realised had quite good odds for most improved player and maybe should have been in the talks for that one.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But yeah, I like their team. I think they've got a decent young team. Maybe at some stage it will outgrow the coach a little bit, and I think that's a discussion they'll get into once they get into this mix. But I think they'll be in the play-in this year. I went for over, and they have to get, if they're getting over that wins, they'll be in the play-in.
Yeah, I'm going over, although they did let go of Bol Bol and that upset me.
Yeah, well, he's in the winning situation.
He is. He's moved on to better pastures. Speaking of better pastures, let's talk about my Sixers. Last year, 54 wins is what the Sixers got. And this year, the line is set at 47.5. So you're taking a 7-game haircut here. Is there any optimism for an overcall here in the Sixers?
I think it's over.
Is low.
I think that is
48
harsh.
is low.
Even with a Harden trade, I think that's harsh. So I'm going with the over for them. I think, as I said, I think they'll be in that 3 to 6 range. I can see Louis smiling already. So I don't know what he's concocting over there. So I'll throw it over to him.
I just think it's just been like an absolute disastrous off-season in general. It has been, hasn't it? Like I talked about the Knicks having a quiet one. They've replaced each other basically in terms of their off seasons. Well, actually, the Sixers is always a bit of a show, isn't it? But it's really close. It is really close. I'm gonna go over. I don't have that. It's definitely not Banker for me. I'll put that out there right now. It's really close, but I think Embiid guarantees you.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That much.
I'm pretty confident in it because Embiid is one of those players that gives you a certain floor.
But we're then asking more from Maxey, which most improved players.
I've got faith in Maxey.
Okay.
I don't think they'll get 54, obviously, but I think they should pretty comfortably go.
I probably should have put the Cavs as under if I was going to put the Sixers as over, but we'll take it.
I went Cavs under because I was going for my Sixers to be over. I think 48 is just too low, if I'm being completely honest. I feel like Embiid himself, like you said, would drag them.
It's not out of the realm, though, is it? You can see
not out of the realm. I could see them going to like 42, and I wouldn't be surprised because it's Philly.
Oh, that would be.
It'd be disastrous, but no, but like it wouldn't surprise me to see them get a low playoff seed. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm saying, but like 5th and below, it wouldn't shock me this year. It really wouldn't.
I don't want to derail. If Joel Embiid's at the Sixers start next season, I'd be surprised.
Oh,
Nah, okay, we're not talking about that now. No.
he's saying, you know what? You were talking about the Knicks biding their time.
Yeah,
earlier,
I
though.
was. That's
Maybe
exactly
that
what I
was
was
a great
thinking.
segue.
That's exactly what I was thinking personally, but you
Right.
know.
Well, we're not doing that now, Louis. Okay, and you've upset me. So now we're talking about Portland. Portland, 33 wins last year. Obviously, they've lost their best rapper, Damian Lillard. 27.5 wins is the line set for them this year. Can Shaden Sharp push them to it? Yes or no?
No.
Yeah, they've got some nice young
Yeah,
players,
yeah,
but no, they're going to have a. When I talked about the teams that are going to have a big drop next year, I think
Yeah.
one of the ones that's going to have a huge drop. So
I put the under as a banker, and I'm not. Although I think Aiton's maybe got a bit too much hate. I'm not believing in the dominating.
Yeah, he definitely has too much hate.
In the dominating hype, personally, but I think we've missed a team there. If we're honest, mate, I think you've skipped over one.
Yeah, I did. I definitely did. It wasn't because I was upset about you mentioning Billy Wiggin. I did miss the Suns. So we'll go back to them. Obviously, the Suns have had quite the off season. They had 45 wins last year. The over/under line is set at 52.5. So you're getting an 8-win increase here with Bradley Beal thrown into the ranks alongside Slender Man himself. They've lost dominating, but they've added some nice role pieces in and around them, including the aforementioned Bol Bol. 8 wins is a lot.
It's tough,
especially with how it's so different. This team is going to be
that
whilst they figure stuff out with Booker and everything. It's hard.
that win total in the West as well is really a tough one to get to, and I can understand why someone would say under. I actually put over purely because I just think almost the argument for them in the playoffs, but more so now, is the firepower is just there, and that it will carry them through games. And the other thing I would add as well is they've fleshed out the roster enough now where I've got confidence in them being able to sustain it for the full season, because otherwise I think I probably would have gone under. But now that
you're saying
they've got some bodies, more bodies now, I'm going over.
So you're saying that their season this year is going to be as good in the regular season as Denver's was last year?
I think Denver will be. I think Denver will be the first seed again. I think the Suns will be the second seed, and I don't think they'll be aligned.
They've got insurance now, you would say, because my main concern here is KD injury. He'll get injured. If he plays more than like 50 games, that'd be very surprising to me personally. But I mean, they got 45 wins last year. The season before, they got 64, and it's a completely different team now. Obviously, I get that, but I think Devin Booker's injury last season is what cost them quite a lot.
Yeah,
I think. Oh,
the main concern for me was the roster. How big the roster is was what was making me maybe be a bit tentative about it, but I still won't be over.
I mean, when we have more time to talk about it, I don't like their place in that whole Portland Dame trade. Personally, I don't think they got better with that whatsoever. But I'll go under. I'll just go under. Not far off.
I'm going just under, but it's by no means a banker. I think for either of these things, because it's just a bit too
just the West, isn't it?
Cult, indeed. Right, moving on. Sacramento, I believe, is the team to pick up now. Sacramento last year, 48 wins, had a lot of sort of answers for a lot of doubters last year. Coming into it this year, they're not underdogs anymore. People are going to have an expectation on the Kings. The line is set at 44.5. You're still getting a 3-game haircut on them if you want it. Do you know what? I feel like I would say under, but I feel the Kings are going to get this whole thing again where people are going to write them off, and they're actually still going to be a pretty damn good basketball team. So I'm going to actually take the Kings for the over here.
Yeah, I took them for the over as well. The Kings, I think I've said this before, they're a team where if you watch them and you just looked at the roster on paper, I think most people would say it'd be more comfortable in saying the under on them for that middle of the pack Western team than some of the others with some of the names on them. But from what I saw last year, there was enough there to suggest to me that they can keep up that consistent level of play. And so obviously, they had the Aaron Fox had the most clutch plays in the league by a mile, but maybe there's some variance there, but I just think there's nothing that suggests to me they can't keep up the level of basketball they were playing last season.
Yeah, I went over as well. I think they've got that consistency from last season that other teams don't have, and their players actually play, which is nice for them.
Yeah.
So,
Indeed. Right, talk of the town. Victor Wembanyama's side. Last year, 22 wins, rock bottom of the Western Conference. This year, the line is set at 28.5. Is Wemby worth, 7 games?
Oh no, no. He might be. Yeah, it's just where I think how they're going to manage him. I think he'll be defensively unbelievable. Offensively, I think he'll be inconsistent, but you'll obviously see the flashes of why he's the best prospect we've seen in a very long time. But couple what I've said with the fact that the actual whole roster itself is not good. I don't think it'll push over this over under. So I'll say the under, but they'll obviously be better because of him. But I don't think they'll reach that.
I think they'll be decent, but they're young. And I think I agree with you. I think they'll manage him quite significantly throughout the season. I was really toying with over. Like I was quite close to it actually because I saw him the other day and I thought, every time you see him, it's like, wow, this guy is like another level. But there has to be the so-called like bottom feeders of these conferences, and I can't see it being. Well, there's a couple. I mean, we'll get to another team actually that it could be, but I think they're going to have to be in that bracket purely because of their youth and how competitive the West is. Personally,
I'm going to go San Antonio on the over then, just to be completely different. I think they'll be around the 27 to 30 mark. So it just depends on me on how Wemby stays, but he's just a.
I will say if they do it, it will mainly be on his and because of him, the team's defense. I think defensively he's going to be absolutely insane.
But yeah, I'm, by no stretch are they a banker. I'm just saying over on it in any case. Let's jump over to the 6th and not the 6th seed. We'll go to the 9th seed last year. The Toronto Raptors, 41 wins last year. The line this season is set at 36.5. So again, it's a 5-game haircut on what you're getting. But that's also because obviously they have lost their main point guard. Scotty Barnes is in trade talks. Pascal Siakam's been in trade talks for a long time.
OG.
Yeah, it's tough to take an over on the Raptors for me. I feel they're going to be under. I think it's going to be a bit of a rocky season for them.
Yeah, they're a sacrifice to me as well, personally, with other teams that have put us the over. I also think what you said about the Bulls in terms of they have a bad start, they can trade away a couple people. There's just so much uncertainty surrounding that team, personally. I know change of coach and everything, that might help, but they just have to for my maths to work out personally. They're at risk. They're at risk, aren't they?
Just have to be under.
I think
it doesn't.
I think the Bulls is an interesting comparison because the same argument that I made for the Bulls, you could make it for the Raptors as well to get the over, because when you look at the roster, they definitely have the players to be able to get to that win total. But I think the difference is the uncertainty level with this team and what could happen with potential trades. I don't like prospecting too much these kind of things when looking at win totals, but I think the level of uncertainty is so much higher with the Raptors than it is with just the Bulls, for example. It's not just if they start bad, it's no matter what. I think pieces will move. It's not just it could. I think I'd lean on the fact that something will happen. So I also went with the under, but I could very easily see them going over with some of the players they have, but I'll just go under.
I also looked at like their fan discussion. I looked at their subreddit and stuff, and sometimes I do it just to see what the fan sentiment is, and it's not good. They are not happy at this moment in time.
No, I don't blame them as well. Moving on, the penultimate team, the Utah Jazz. Obviously, last year, I think they had a better season people were expecting the Jazz to have.
Much better, I think. Yeah.
37 wins is where they were. The line is set at 35.5, and I'm taking the under on that. And I don't need to give any rationale behind it. I just don't think they're that good.
Yeah, they dropped off a bit after because I think there was a lot of spotlight on how well they were doing at one point, given what people thought they were. Yeah, that was the main thing. I think no one thought he was going to have the breakout year he did, but because everyone knows he's a good player, but just not. They didn't think he'd be to that level of leading a team. But I do think they'll regress a bit this year, and they'll knock off quite a few wins from their total last year.
Yeah, they went 10-3 to start the season last year, so for their first 13 games, so that accounted for just under a quarter of their wins. I think there's have to be a team that goes down here, where other teams are improving, particularly the Thunder and the Rockets as well, that I've got improving as well. And I just think the overall talent level, even though they've got like I said with other, who is it? I think it's the Pelicans. They've got a lot of good role players, but not enough sort of X factor talent to elevate them above other really good Western Conference teams. So that's the unfortunate reality of it for the Utah Jazz.
And the final team that we've got is those damn Washington Wizards is how we're going to talk about now. The disgrace that's going on in the nation's capital. Last year they had 35 wins, lost Bradley Beal and a few other pieces. The line is set at 23.5, and I am taking that line to the bank for the under.
So I don't know if I'd take it to the bank, but everyone knows it's going to be a catastrophic slide. It's just how big is the slide going to be? And I do think it'll be big enough to be under for this, but I don't know if I'd make it a bank, but it's definitely going to be under. I
think they're going to be closer to 15 wins than they are to 20, is how I see their season going.
To 20? There's not much of a window there, to be fair. 15 to 20.
But I feel they're going to have I think they're going to have a season very reminiscent of the Pistons.
Well, that'd be closer to 20. I mean, if I could be talked into banker, because if you said to me over under, I'm more confident in saying under for them than a lot of the other over unders we've mentioned before. So.
I do think Jordan Poole is potentially a better player than whoever the Pistons were wheeling out the majority of the time last year, because Cade was injured, obviously.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I just feel like
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we've all said under. No one.
We don't need to.
Good season.
We don't need to beat a man while they're down.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
We're basically deciding how bad they're going to be.
So I'm looking at the ones. So I've gone through, and every time we've done this, I've marked up some of the ones that we said for potential bankers. Yeah. So I actually, we all said over on Boston, and we said it's so confident.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, we didn't say them, but they would be one of the main bankers for me.
So the banker we've got Boston over, Charlotte under, Detroit under, Lakers over, Bucks over, and OKC over. So there's 6 there. What's the one out of those 6 that you would feel the less likely?
But yeah, I'll do it the other way around and chuck out some of the ones I think are definite bankers. For me, the main 3 are the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Lakers. I think those 3 are solid bankers for me. So I'd say those 3 first.
Yep.
And then what's it after that?
Charlotte, Detroit, and OKC. So obviously 2 unders and an over.
What was Detroit's line again?
27.5.
Cool, that was quick, Louis. Was it 27?
I remember that one.
It was
Charlotte, Detroit, and OKC.
I think Charlotte is definitely. I think Charlotte is a banker. I really do. If I'm wrong, I'll hold my hands up. But I think 31.5 seems a lot for a team that just seems like in complete disarray at this moment, and we're just banking on. Oh, LaMelo Ball's quite decent. You know, that's quite a lot for me.
Yeah.
All LaMelo Ball's quite decent. Okay.
An all-star player. I'll give him that due respect, but he can't. He's not ever really won a serious amount of games, if I'm honest.
No, it's a toss-up between. It's a toss-up between the Detroit Pistons going under 27.5, or the OKC going over. Was it 44.5? Is what we said.
Yeah.
Not what we said. What the
I'm just trying to think if there was another one. There was another one I'd be more bullish on than them.
I'm leaning towards the Thunder for 44.5 because I'm quite. Maybe we're overrating them, and maybe the sort of NBA sphere at large is maybe overrating them a little bit because they're still a young team. But I do think Chet looks like he could be a market improvement on what they had. They had no big men last season. Like that is a massive thing. And he is like not just a big man, but a really good big man. He can score, he can defend to a really high level.
Yeah, there is some
Another
game
season of
management with him
development
as well, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. But for 5 more wins, I know it's the Western Conference, but
yeah,
I'm more confident in that than
Trail
Pistons.
What was the Trailblazers line again? Because I think I was pretty confident on the under for them.
27 and a half.
Am I more confident on Detroit getting less than that, though?
I'd be more confident. I think Detroit are more likely to get 28 wins than Portland are.
Yeah, I think they are as well, personally.
So are we saying Portland then as the other banker?
It's between that or the
right
Thunder
now
over.
It's
right
tough.
now we've got Boston over, Bucks over, Celtics over, Hornets under. We need one more.
Yeah, I think the problem with these three is it's obviously contingent on the young players of the team. Like Scoot could come in and make an enormous impact and soften the blow, and then Ayton could help as well. Obviously, yeah, I don't think that much because I picked the under. And then when it comes to OKC, we're looking at Chet and probably Gideon, Jalen Williams as. I feel like I'd be more. I am very confident in them three stepping up. But the competition around them is very hard. So
yeah.
I mean, I basically said a whole lot of nothing there. Which
it's down to you two, really. It's down to you two. I've planted my flag. I feel like.
Where's your flag?
My flag is on the OKC over, but we've done 3 overs, so I wouldn't mind doing an under.
It doesn't matter. It's just.
I don't care about that.
We're positive podcast.
I'm about to put some wedge on it, so that's. I want to make sure it's the banker that we think.
Yeah, it's true. You pick. You're the one bloody putting your money up.
No, but it's the collective mind. It's the collective mind of the Swingman podcast. That's where it's true. That's where it's coming into here.
100% going to happen.
If it does as well, it definitely doesn't fall down on the last day of the season, thanks to fucking Washington Wizards. But I feel like if I was going to plant my flag in this, I would be leaning more on the OKC, just because I'm quite bullish on the OKC this year.
I'm not gonna lie, if I picked, I think I'd do. Mine would be the Trailblazers to be under first, I think, and then I'd probably do OKC second. So that's my two.
I forgot about the Blazers because you didn't mention them. What about the Wizards?
Yeah.
Wizards under? Is the Wizards under not in there?
Yeah,
as well?
To be fair, you were really bullish on that, George, and we all said it. So if you want to chuck that in, then be my guest.
Right, do you know what? This round, I'm just going to put them all in, and then what? Right. I think the official banker, I will say, will be Boston over, Bucks over, Celtics over, Hornets under, OKC over. And then when I tweet these out, once this pod goes live, and I tweet everything out, I will have a banker done, and I'll have 2 bets. I will have that bet as the official one, and that is our 5 locked in. Are we agreed on that? Do we say that that's our Swingman 5?
Go for it. Sure.
Right. And then I'll also do another one that includes, what was it? Portland under. And then who's the other team?
The Washington Wizards under. And the Pistons under.
And the Pistons under, yeah.
And the Pistons under.
You got the we got the good ones in one and the bums in the other.
Yeah, well, we got the Hornets in. We got the Hornets in.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
So, as of recording with this leading British bookmaker, the Swingman banker is coming out at 20-1, which is obviously
good money,
boys. That's how 20-1 means. And then if I add in, what is it? Wizards under. It is a Portland under. Yeah,
and the Pistons under.
Over. And then a Detroit Pistons under. Find Detroit. We're coming out at a banker of 113-1. So, I mean, it just can't fail. There's no way it can. So, I think we've done a smashing job right there. And as I just mentioned, when you're watching this, and obviously you stayed for the full hour and 10 minutes that we're at right now. If you're here, make sure that you do drop us a follow over on all of our platforms that you may be listening to this to. If you're watching this on YouTube, like you probably are, that's where the majority of our audience is, please consider hitting the subscribe button. But in any case, if you're not and you watch it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please give us a follow over there and also leave a little review in the 5-star bits there. It would mean the world to us. Follow us on our socials. We're at swingmanpod. You can probably see that here or here. I can't remember what bit it'll be on. And yes, that is it. The NBA season is right around the corner. I think we're doing this before it is starting. It's like a couple of days away when this podcast is going to go up. But make sure that you're subscribed and you're following us to stay up to date with absolutely everything on the NBA that we will be posting. It's been a long podcast, so we're going to get out of here now. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.